Well, thank you for being with us, Denee. Can you say hello?
Thanks, Ginger. Yes, hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Denee Choice. I am a medical doctor by training, a former senior healthcare executive, and currently run my own coaching and consulting firm. And actually, you can go to the next slide, please. I work with women physicians, women leaders in healthcare, as well as in other industries, do a lot of work on leadership communication, and team building, as well as stress management and work-life balance. And one of the topics that comes up in my clients across all industries is gender bias. So the gap I'm referring to here is the gender gap. Being a physician and working with a lot of women physician clients, I can assure you that even in medicine, where women make up nearly half the workforce at this point, and women have actually started to outnumber men coming out of medical school, the gender gap is still alive and well. In fact, male doctors make $2 million more over the course of their careers than female doctors, even after correcting for all variables, including specialty, work week hours, years worked, et cetera. Next slide, please. So the gender gap isn't just one thing. So yes, there's definitely a gap in pay where equal work does not mean equal pay. But there are other gaps. There's the opportunity gaps, respect gaps, and responsibility gaps. So why the gaps? Well, there are internal and external factors at play. But the external factors, things like how we're socialized, how enculturated, and the organizational norms and cultures we're exposed to in our workplaces, this is the basis for the gender gap. And then on top of that, there are some internal factors. So the way we think, feel, and act, which of course are influenced heavily by the external factors. But the gender gap is a big problem. And sadly, I have no solutions for you today for the external factors. What I like to focus on is what I have control of. And I have control of me and my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. And I have some influence on those in my sphere of influence. So what I'm offering you today is a tool to focus on what you have control of, which is your thoughts, feelings, and actions. And this tool is really the antidote to the internal factors that cause women, and especially women leaders like many of you, to self-sabotage. Next slide, please. So I want to introduce you to this tool that I use with my clients to build mental fitness. And just as we need to train in specific ways to increase our physical fitness, we can train in other ways to increase our mental fitness. And this tool is developed by Positive Intelligence, Shirzad Chamine, and it's abbreviated as PQ, in reference to the third form of intelligence. So IQ is cognitive intelligence, EQ is emotional intelligence, and PQ is positive intelligence. And mental fitness is the path to developing positive intelligence. Next slide, please. So what is mental fitness? Mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than negative mindset. And the impact of developing higher levels of mental fitness is the attainment of improved performance, healthy relationships, and peace of mind or emotional wellness. Next slide, please. And mental fitness is actually an evidence-based tool created based on concepts from neuroscience, cognitive behavioral psychology, performance science, and positive psychology. Next slide. And the tool is developed using factor analysis, which is a method of radical simplification that identifies the root cause of all performance and wellness outcomes. And the example given here is that factor analysis of all the thousands and thousands of colors in the world comes down to only 3 factors: red, blue, and yellow. Next slide. And then when they completed the factor analysis on the scientific evidence around these 4 disciplines, they found only 3 core muscles at the root of mental fitness. And that was what's called the saboteur interceptor, the sage, and self-command. And we'll talk about all of these in a little bit of detail. So next slide, please. So in defining the components, they found only in all people that they studied, millions of people they studied, 10 ways that all individuals self-sabotage our performance and happiness, and 5 ways that we can improve our performance and wellness or happiness. Next slide. And again, backing up to the 3 core muscles, we've got the saboteur interceptor, the sage muscle, and the self-command muscle. So we'll start by digging into the saboteurs. Next, please. So the judge is the master saboteur. This is the one that we all have and is also all of our most prominent saboteur. That's the judge. So you're probably familiar with the term inner critic, which is one component of the judge. That's the component where we judge ourselves. But the judge saboteur also judges others and judges our circumstances. So it's important to note that all negative thoughts and feelings are actually initially triggered by the judge, either judging ourselves, others, or our circumstances. And a good way to start looking at the judge or looking for the judge in your thoughts is when you're thinking should or shouldn't statements. I should be ahead in this project. I should be making more money. I shouldn't have to deal with, ABC. Those are all the should and shouldn't statements that all really are triggered from the judge. Next slide, please. So the judge triggers some negative thoughts or emotions and then brings in what are called accomplice saboteurs. So while we all have the judge, we all have different combinations of accomplice saboteurs. And we tend to have 2 or 3 top accomplice saboteurs. We're actually pretty much wired with these at birth. So we're predisposed to developing certain behaviors and habits of the mind. And then they're additionally shaped and strengthened by our experiences in childhood or young adulthood. And any mothers out there that have more than one child can attest to the different inherent natures of their children that were really noticeable from birth. So each child has different strengths and challenges despite being raised in the exact same environment. And that goes to this is just kind of the way we're wired or predisposed. So and accomplice saboteurs that I commonly see in high achieving women are some combination of people pleasing, perfectionism, which is called the stickler in this model, and imposter syndrome, which is really the judge. I would say that the avoider is also a big one that shows up for many individuals, either as procrastination or conflict avoidance. Next slide, please. So looking at the saboteur muscles versus the sage muscles, what's important to understand is that the saboteurs and the sage actually live in different parts of the brain. So these are neural pathways in different parts of the brain. So the saboteurs are motivated by negative emotions, and the sage is motivated by positive emotions. And saboteurs, while they might help you generate success by driving you to work harder, they do not help you generate happiness or peace of mind. So the sage helps you generate your highest level of success and sustain happiness. Next slide, please. So negative emotions are helpful for us, but only as a warning sign. And staying in negative emotions interferes with our ability to see things clearly and to respond in a way that serves us. So stewing in anger when you feel wronged, what does that do to your day, right? It sidetracks your whole day. And ruminating on past mistakes or worrying about the future, these are all negative emotions that aren't serving us. And remember that negative emotions are saboteur voices in your head. So we grow our saboteur interceptor muscles to interrupt this process. Next slide, please. So I'm also going to touch briefly on the sage muscle. The sage is our inner wisdom. So it's the opposite of the inner critic, and it's really our authentic self. The sage doesn't rely solely on our cognitive intelligence or rational thought, but really taps into the body, the intelligences that we often associate with our heart or our gut. And the sage lives in the area of the brains associated with positive emotion and with clear-headed focus and big picture thinking. And the sage operates from the sage perspective. Next slide, please. So the sage perspective is understanding that every outcome can be turned into a gift and opportunity. And I want to share a story that illustrates this sage perspective. Next slide, please. Oh, we're one behind. Sorry, one more. Thank you. Okay, so this is called the stallion story. An old farmer lives on his farm with his teenage son. He also has a beautiful stallion that he lovingly cares for. The farmer enters his stallion into the annual country fair competition. His stallion wins first prize. The farmer's neighbors gather to congratulate him on this great win. He calmly says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Puzzled by this reaction, the neighbors go away. The next week, some thieves who heard about the stallion's increased value steal the horse. When the neighbors come to commiserate with the farmer, they again find him very calm and gathered. He says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Several days later, the spirited stallion escapes from the thieves and finds his way back to the farm, bringing with him a few wild mares that he has befriended along the way. To his neighbors' excited rounds of congratulations, the old farmer once again says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" A few weeks later, the farmer's son is thrown off of one of these new mares as he's trying to break it in, and his leg is fractured. As the neighbors gather to commiserate with the old farmer, he once again reminds them, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" The following week, the Imperial Army marches through the village, conscripting all eligible young men for the war that has just broken out. The old farmer's son is spared due to his fractured leg. The neighbors no longer bother to come to the old farmer to congratulate him. By now, they know what his response will be. Who knows what is good and what is bad? Next slide, please. So, which perspective is true? The answer is whichever you believe becomes true. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy based on neuroscience, on the principle of cognitive bias. So we find evidence for what we believe, and we discount any evidence to the contrary. This is literally how our brains are wired. And, it makes me think of the Henry Ford quote, "If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right," right? You're right either way. It's all about perspective, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Next slide, please. So the last muscle of mental fitness we'll look at is self-command. We train self-command, which is essentially our focus skills, by shifting all of our attention to a single physical sensation. This allows us to tune into the non-thinking part of our mind, and we refer to this practice as PQ reps. Next slide, please. So a PQ rep is very simple. again, shifting as much of your attention as you can to your body and any of your 5 senses for at least 10 seconds or about 3 breaths. Again, that activates the non-thinking mind, and that counts as 1 PQ rep. So these reps activate and grow your self-command muscle, which helps you self-regulate your thoughts and feelings. And when you grow your self-command muscle, you then combine your PQ reps with mental reframing exercises that help you intercept your saboteurs and activate your sage mind. Next slide, please. So the beauty of this system lies in its simplicity. So when you feel negative emotions, stop, recognize you're in saboteur mode, do some PQ reps to quiet the saboteurs and activate the sage part of your brain. Assume the sage perspective that every problem can be turned into a gift or opportunity. And then you generate the gift by using sage powers like empathy, curiosity, creativity, and calm, clear-headed action. Next slide, please. So here's a common question I get. Is it really possible to just shift from saboteur to sage response, even in tough challenges? Well, the answer is yes, but, right? Yes, but it depends on how strong your mental muscles are as to how quickly you can make that shift. So if you have been practicing PQ reps, within 1 to 2 weeks of practicing, you will actually see a shift in small things. So things like getting cut off in traffic that might normally put you into a tailspin, right? You will see yourself responding differently and notice the improvement in small things like that. Bigger things like having your basement flood or getting laid off at work, that's going to require much stronger muscles. And the more work you do, the more PQ reps you do, the more you incorporate this into your day, which we'll talk about how to do, the stronger those PQ muscles get. Next slide, please. So this tool is the 20% of the insights that you learned. It's 20% insights, and then 80% is actually you taking this tool and practicing it. So building the mental muscle through practice. If you think about it like learning to ride a bike, you can read an article or watch a YouTube video about how to ride a bike and get the insights. But actually acquiring the physical skills you need to ride a bike requires far more practice to build those mental muscles. And again, it's riding a bike and learning how to do PQ reps and activate the sage part of your brain are both about building new neural pathways in the brain. Next slide, please. So the key to developing this into a skill that you can use every day is really what we would call intense initial effort. So for 6 to 8 weeks, practicing PQ reps for 15 minutes per day in total, in many bites throughout the day. So 2 minutes when you wake up, 2 minutes, several times a day. Easily it will add up to that 15 minutes a day. And that's the initial intense practice that is required to start building the muscles. It may seem like a lot because we all know that we're very busy and it seems like we don't have time to put anything else on our plate, but this is only 2% of your waking hours. It is a very small commitment to make to improving yourself. So here's an example. 1 minute of PQ reps you could get in every time you wash your hands. So this would be feeling the faucet. You're focused into your physical sensations, remember? So you feel the faucet handle. You pump the soap into your hand. You feel the lather of the soap. You feel the temperature of the water. You feel the pressure of the water as you rinse off the soap. You feel the texture of the towel as you dry your hands. And you can do that same thing with other daily routine events, sitting down to meals, noting all of the physical sensations of your meals, the temperature, the sights, the smells, the tastes. Stopping at traffic lights, focusing on your breathing at traffic lights. Something that we do, it seems like a million times a day, getting on and off Zoom calls, taking 1 minute to do some PQ reps then with the, closing out the Zoom call as a trigger. So it quickly and easily adds up to the 15 minutes a day that you need to get that intense practice to get the neural pathways primed and going. So I would like to give you the opportunity to practice PQ reps for a few moments here. So again, this is optional. If you would like to participate, sit up tall in your chair, put your feet on the ground so that you're kind of grounded in your position. If you're comfortable doing so, go ahead and close your eyes. Now, what I want you to do is focus your attention on the feeling of your chair supporting you. Feel the chair where it contacts your seat and where it contacts your back. Next, I want you to gently rub your thumb and index finger together with such a tension that you could feel the fingertip ridges on each finger. Now move all of the fingertips of one hand slowly down the fingers and palm of the other hand and back up to the fingertips and feel all of the sensations. Now shift your attention to your breath. Feel the rising and falling of your chest or belly as you breathe. Now pay attention to the breath at your nose. Feel the temperature of the air as it enters your nostrils and as it leaves your nostrils. Now bring your attention back to the chair and to the sensations of the chair supporting your body. And when you're ready, go ahead and open up your eyes. So how do you feel? That's the power of PQ reps. That was literally less than 2 minutes of PQ reps, and that's all it takes to calm your mind and to reset your physiology. So again, that's sitting down to do an intentional practice of just, a couple minutes. Start your day, perhaps after every meal or, however you want to split it up during the day. But to get 15 minutes in, can be that intentional practice where you do it 2 minutes at a time. It can also be what we talked about washing your hands. Think about how many times did we wash our hands, and an opportunity to get another minute in each time you wash your hands, or with each meal, to be really mindful and experience sensations of the meals. So again, it quickly adds up to the 15 minutes a day that you need to get that intense initial practice. Next slide, please. So to summarize, negative thoughts and feelings are always caused by your saboteurs, the judge and accomplices. Mental fitness skills are the antidote to self-sabotage and are easy to learn and use. Mastering these skills in just 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks will help you achieve peak performance, healthy relationships, and peace of mind and emotional wellness. So if this piques your interest and you want to learn more, I actually have some free resources I created for you, including a guide to all 10 saboteurs, so you can see how they all impact us, and also access to a free saboteur assessment so that you can determine your own personal top saboteurs if that's of interest to you. So if you're interested in that, you can scan this QR code. I'm pretty sure after the pandemic, we all know how these work, right? You can't go to a restaurant anymore without having to scan a QR code. But that will take you to a web page where you can download download those resources. Again, they're completely free. It'll also put you on my email list, which I send out tips occasionally, and additional resources that you may be interested in. So I will stop there. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed learning about this tool and getting the opportunity to actually experience it for yourself. So thank you very much. And Ginger, I'd be happy to take any questions if we have some.
Thank you, Denee. So just as a reminder, if anybody would like to ask a live question, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. But I'm going to go through some of the questions that came in through the chat. All right, I'm going to start with the one from Brianna. And she said, I'm sorry that I joined late. Can you please review what a PQ is?
Okay. PQ, to summarize, is the positive is short for positive intelligence. It is the amount of time your brain spends in patterns that serve you versus in patterns that don't serve you. So negative thoughts and emotions. And it's named PQ kind of in reference to IQ being cognitive intelligence, EQ being emotional intelligence, and then PQ being positive intelligence. So thank you for that opportunity to summarize that again.
Well, thank you. I think maybe we have time for 2 more questions. I'm going to go through, I'll say this one from Anya. She said, I really struggle taking work issues home with me, coworkers, politics, stress. And she says, what can I do to start the process? And her comment is, what do you think is her first step?
The first step is always awareness, right? So noticing when you are feeling negative feelings or thinking negative thoughts and just labeling them actually is a tremendous tool. It's called affect labeling, but basically you start with when you notice you're thinking or you're feeling like maybe I'm feeling anxiety, you say to yourself, I'm feeling anxious because I'm thinking blank, and then you fill in the blank. And our bodies just react, right? So sometimes those thoughts are conscious to us, and sometimes it really takes some reflection to figure out what's making us feel that way. But your thoughts always drive your emotions. So again, affect labeling is what it's called in cognitive science, but I'm feeling blank, angry, frustrated, whatever. I'm feeling blank because I'm thinking blank. And literally, if you start doing that on a regular basis, that alone can really totally change your perspective. So I'll stop with that.
Wonderful. All right, I think we have time for one more question, and then we're going to ask you for some final thoughts. And Becca says, and this came in kind of early in your presentation, she says, what about the coworkers that are just grumpy and mean? They are not going to change. How can I learn to work with them?
Well, this is a great question, and you hit on a very important point that they aren't going to change. At least not because you want them to, right? Because we can only control our own thoughts and feelings, emotions, and they can control their own. But you can control how you experience, how they show up in your life by reframing your thoughts about them, which again impacts your feelings and the way you act. So again, I think the important thing to recognize is you only have control of you. You can't control them, but you can control your experience of any difficult situation. And, bringing back what we talked about with the SAGE perspective is that any challenge or opportunity, any challenge or negative, something we would describe as negative can be turned into a gift or opportunities. So what can you learn from this individual that might help you today, tomorrow, next year? So we talk about in the world of PQ, we talk about challenging people as being our Jedi trainers, right? Like in reference to Star Wars. And it's the most difficult people in our lives that help us build the greatest skills and insights moving forward. So if you think of that person as your Jedi trainer, and gives you a chance when they do something and you feel a negative emotion or thought about it, to really just notice first. So that's the awareness piece. Then practice PQ reps, right? A minute to 2 minutes of PQ reps activates the sage area of your brain. And then you can think about, once that positive area of your brain is activated, then you can think about how you want to shift your perception, how this might, be turned into a gift or opportunity, and move forward that way.
Well, thank you for being with us. Well, before we move on to our next presentation from Carlin, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for our viewers today?
I think it's just that this is making changes is easier than you think. When we want to make changes, we think about the ultimate goal. Like, here I am today and I want to be this way differently, however that is. And we look at that distance and think there's no way, I don't have time for this, it's never going to work. And again, those are all negative thoughts, and that's all the saboteurs talking to us. But it's, you saw how easy this is. It happens 1 or 2 minutes at a time. And if you want to break it down even further, it happens to 10 seconds at a time. So who doesn't have time to take a step that takes only 10 seconds? So it's simple. It's easy. You can quickly incorporate this into your life. You just have to make a commitment that you actually want to make some changes, and then keep your commitments to yourself. So that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.